if you are a category leader or a category creator, or if you want to behave like one, look at your own keywords or data which you can create a interesting report or index, right? The second example is Wizikey's own PR. We eat our own dog food too, right? 80% of our customers, and we have about 100 plus customers, have come largely through PR efforts, and they're inbound completely. We are using our own PR hack to get it. We create a lot of newsmaker reports, which are yearly and quarterly trends, right? And that has helped us get some of the best customers. First, they came to check on the report, and then they loved the methodology, then they wanted to know more about the product, and they are now our customers.
Welcome everyone. So today we have Anshul with us, who is the world's first IITian who is building a PR software. Thanks a lot, Anshul, to take out time to be here with us, and really pleasure to have this session with you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Yash.
Thanks a lot. So we'll quickly start with our quick section on rapid fire. So I'll be asking a couple of questions on you, and you just have to tell whatever comes in your mind at the first strike.
I'm quite nervous, but I'll go with it.
Yeah. So I'll start. So the first question is, at your biggest teacher until today. Who is your biggest teacher until today?
My favorite teacher is my English teacher, who was there in my class 6. He ensured that I crammed an entire dictionary of 5,000 words, and that's still coming in very handy.
Oh, nice. That's interesting, actually. 5,000 words. So the next question is, if you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Creative, analytical, and a dreamer.
Oh, nice. I love the dreamer bit of it. That stands you apart. So on the next question, given a chance to either speak or write for a national podium, what would you choose, and what would the topic be?
I'll speak on the podium, and I would speak about entrepreneurship.
Oh, that just touches my heart. So being an entrepreneur myself, I think that's something we want more of leaders to guide us like you. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next question. Given a chance to interview a famous personality, who would you like to interview?
Elon Musk.
All right. And may I know why?
I think he's very controversial and very unconventional. He speaks from his heart. I love that straight talking.
All right. And the final last question, one life lesson you learned and tell almost every other person about it.
Always let go of things, right? So when you're, let's say, running a company, hire people better than you, let them drive it. Don't micromanage people at all.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is a major learning for people, especially people who are trying to be leaders and
Absolutely.
become great leaders. So as part of this rapid fire, we have another section, which is kind of a fun section where we do a swipe left or swipe right. So I'll just throw terms at you, and you have to just do swipe left if you don't like it, and right if you like it. So to begin with, corporate life.
Swipe right.
Oh, nice. Wine and dines.
Swipe left.
Oh, traveling new places.
Swipe right.
Gaming.
Swipe right.
New cuisines.
Swipe left.
Oh, all right. So that was it from our swipe left, right, and rapid fire section. And it was really fun talking to you about getting the spontaneous answers about these things. So that's it from this section, and then we can move on to the questions that we have prepared for you for a longer interview. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I'll just begin with the first question, which inspires me a lot also, which is, I think, for any entrepreneur who is looking to build his own company. So I would like to know more, start with knowing your journey about starting Wizikey.
Sure. So Wizikey actually is a result of plenty of opportunity that I've worked with, let's say, a big corporate, and then worked with Fortune 500 companies, and then also worked with a lot of early stage startups. and then also gotten a chance with working with high growth and unicorns also, right? The single most important thing which I understood about all of these companies was all of them wanted to tell their stories to the world, right? Whether it was Oyo Rooms, whether it was HCL, whether it was a startup which was backed by Tiger, where I was doing marketing, every company, every entrepreneur has to go out and tell their stories, right?
Yes.
It's very difficult. It's extremely difficult, right? Now, when you want to tell the story to the world, you have to keep in mind how you are telling the story is also very important, right? There are three ways that you can tell your story. One is by buying billions of dollars of worth of advertising. That's one. Second, you can go and speak about yourself and your company on social media. Both of these aspects give you a lot of visibility. But the most credibility that you get is when a third party talks great things about you. That's your investors, that's your partners, that's your employees, right? And I think the third thing is what differentiates a great company from a good company. Believe me, it's very difficult. Only 8 out of 10 companies actually suffer and they're not able to do this, right? That's the problem that I'm solving at Wizikey.
All right. So that's like a very genuine problem. And given my share of experience before, I'm able to relate to it that it's really tough to get the word out. You can just keep pushing it. It does not matter as long as people believe in it.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the Wizikey's story. Wizikey basically, it looks like it operates in a very niche area coming when we look at the entire startup ecosystem. So people are working in edtech and bigger industries, but Wizikey chose to be in a niche area. So how did you actually validated your idea when you started off with this project?
So, first of all, it's a very big myth that PR is a very small or a niche category. It's a niche category in India. Globally, PR is a $90 billion industry. In India, it's about $300 million company, which is pretty small, right? When I started my journey as a corporate communication professional from HCL, I had the opportunity to work with the largest of the largest market communications budget. So I handled television advertising, I handled print ads, I handled PR, I handled social media, digital marketing, etc. Right? These are early days of digital marketing industry. And in the last 10 years, digital marketing industry has grown from what? Couple of 100 crores to about 30, 40,000 crores in the industry, right? When I joined a startup and when I started working with a lot of unicorns and companies, right, I realized the market trends have changed. Entrepreneurs love to tell their stories and they want to talk about it, right? But the entire PR industry in India has been devoid of tech. There is no software, there is no standardization that existed, right? So somewhere I think I am standardizing the fragmented industry, giving it the power of tech that it needs. And I hope that this industry becomes a large one in the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, got it. So, do you think that Wizikey is playing or has the first mover advantage in this entire industry to set it up into a tech space like we have seen in other industries happening?
Yes, to a large extent. Like, for example, there's a red ocean and there's a blue ocean strategy, right? If you look at Asia, we definitely think we are not having that much of competition. But if you look at Australia, if you look at US, you look at Europe, there have been multi-billion dollar companies which are listed. There are multi-billion dollar companies which are doing a lot of work actually, right? And there are 100-year-old companies which are acquiring companies, etc., right? I do think Wizikey is a global opportunity. So when it comes to the entire world, definitely there are a lot of competition that we'll have to beat. Having said that, in Asia, it definitely is one of the rising sectors where we are the category creator or the leader.
All right, so that's like a good space to be in when you create the market than bite off a market, existing market. So I'll just move on to the next question. So when you started Wizikey after validating your idea, so how was the early days? Like, how did they look like? So I guess it is like, as you said, it is the first time someone is trying to innovate or revolutionize this industry, get tech into this space. So how did the early days look like? How tough it was? What were the challenges that you had to come through?
Sure. So uh, it was not as tough as probably for any other startup it is, right? We had the unfair advantage of having seen the pain that customers go through. We also had the unfair advantage of understanding how communication works, me and my fellow co-founder. Plus, I come from IIT, right? So I was exposed to a lot of product. So I think product, I'm a very product mindset person, right? Some of these things helped us to quickly catapult ourselves. Within the first 1 year of our existence, we were doing pretty good numbers. We had notched in about 30 to 40 customers, which was quite unheard of, right? And thanks to the entire category defining product that we built, right? We knew that there's an untapped potential of the market, and we also knew who exactly to go to. So thankfully, our first couple of quarters were not looking for customers coming to us because they knew us, what we were doing.
Yeah.
The hardest thing which actually happened for us was this problem is not just a tech problem, and this is also not just an art problem, right? We are trying to marry art and science of tech and data together. So hiring the first few employees were very important, getting them mixed together, because this is one place where collaboration needs to happen, right? This is typically, that's why I think this is the hardest thing of collaborating between an engineer and an art mindset. Again, I had the unfair advantage of being a person who has an IT degree and art degree of brand management, so I could do this better than probably any other entrepreneur.
Right. So if given talking about people who don't have that unfair advantage, like there are so many budding entrepreneurs in India who are trying to build their own company. So what advice you would like to give the folks who have just are basically, you can say, in the idea stage of their journey, they have just thought of the idea and how to take this up forward?
I think a lot of people talk about product market fitment. I think even before that, there's a problem and founder market fitment, which a lot of people don't understand, right? I think founders should be solving a problem which they have gone through, which they have had a pain about, actually, right? That's what I personally believe in. Please, if there is an entrepreneur who hearing this session, they should not go solving a problem because it's trending. Believe me, you're going to be with this problem for 10, 15 years of your life. You have to wake up every day, right? So I think you should be in love with the problem. That's, I think, is the most important thing that I would like to do, or like to give to budding entrepreneurs out there.
All right. So I think this is a very interesting advice, which I have heard for. Nobody speaks about it, and this makes so much sense that instead of going after is this particular idea will give you $1 billion company or like $100 billion.
Also, there are other ways also, Yash, where people do it, right? There is also a funding market fitment. People see that this funding is happening, therefore I should do it, right? I think that's also good. People have done that. Having said that, I think the most important thing which a founder should do is figure out how much is he in love with the problem he's trying to solve. Everything else will be very easy.
I think it boils down to that entrepreneurs are passionate at heart, and if you are solving something else which you're not passionate about, you will lose steam eventually.
Absolutely.
So Wizikey is into a SaaS business, and Wizikey has a lot of B2B clients and corporate clients. So in this industry, we have seen that customer retention is a major metric. And how does Wizikey holds and retains its customers and try to increase business with them?
Sure. So there are three things which I recommend when a company is building early stage SaaS software. First is have clear cut numbers in front of you in terms of what churn, what kind of attrition you will allow, you will not allow, etc., etc. What happens is when you are taking decisions through these data boards or dashboards, all of a sudden your journey becomes easier when you're building a SaaS company, right? The second thing is please have a very, very close relationship with customer. If need be, go and talks with them, do weekly calls, go and meet them. As much time as you spend with your key customers, I think it will help you and the customer build very, very good relationship. By the very nature of the early SaaS, the first few customers that you will get will be early adopters. Early adopters are the key to build and cross the chasm later on, right? So that's the key. The third thing which I would typically advise is do not hesitate in also doing some kind of managed services. While managed services may sound very cliched, right? It really helps in controlling churn in the initial bit. When your product probably is 10 years behind of your sales, having some bit of managed services does get to that magical attrition in check.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I think this was really insightful for a lot of people. Moving on to the next question. We have a lot of people who might be interested in now taking PR as their career option. So, any company, when they think of doing a PR, so what is the mindset before actually going ahead and taking a decision of doing a PR?
So I think the most successful PR campaigns, when you're thinking of doing one, you should always first think of what is the business objective that you want to meet with them, right? So typically there are 4 business objectives: getting more customers, getting more employees, getting more ecosystem buzz, or getting more investors' attention, right? First, talk to the CEO, talk to your team. What is the business objective that you're trying to achieve? Once you have a clarity, only then you plan the PR campaign, right? That's one bit that I have done myself, and I think really works when you're planning your PR campaigns.
I think that that helps, having like a clear, defined objectives before taking it forward should be the right step.
Absolutely.
So moving forward, so what are some of the good PR examples that you have come across while working with your clients? And we would like to, if you can share some of those with our audience on how to learn from them, basically.
Sure. So I think there are tons of them which I admire a lot because I'm now in the part of the industry. For example, I think when companies are doing PR, the 2 things which they have to keep in mind is, one, PR is like biz dev, right? So you have to keep doing it again and again and again and again, right? It's not like you just did one press release and you'll be top of the town for the next 5 years, right? So whenever companies are able to think of a unique thing which they can own and they can actually run this for the next 4 or 5 years, that's very, very magical for me. And one example that I have, which I would love to say, is Naukri.com's JobsPeak, right? They release the job indexes and how various industries are doing. They're also a customer. Every time they do a release, there are tons of coverage which they get because they have become a synonymous name with job in India, right? And they are acting like a thought leader themselves, right? And beauty of this model is, which I would love to tell as an entrepreneur to everybody out there, is if you are a category leader or a category creator, or if you want to behave like one, look at your own keywords or data which you can create a interesting report or index, right? The second example is Wizikey's own PR. We eat our own dog food too, right? 80% of our customers, and we have about 100 plus customers, have come largely through PR efforts, and they're inbound completely. We are using our own PR hack to get it. We create a lot of newsmaker reports, which are yearly and quarterly trends, right? And that has helped us get some of the best customers. First, they came to check on the report, and then they loved the methodology. Then they wanted to know more about the product, and they are now our customers.
That's really interesting, like using your strategy on yourself and so that's really nice. One PR incident that is like around the corner right now is the Coca-Cola one. I guess everybody has heard about Ronaldo doing a stint on Coca-Cola bottle in Euros. So what do you make out of this particular incident for Coca-Cola, and someone who's taking care of PR for Coca-Cola, how should they react to this incident?
Sure. So there are 2 ways that PR professionals deal with it. Short term, there's a lot of agony, there's pain there, because today news is 24/7, and all of a sudden the poor person or poor team would have woken up with all these news, right? But a seasoned PR professional always thinks long term. Long term, Imagine the kind of collaterals which have been created where Cristiano Ronaldo's name has been now associated with Coca-Cola without spending a single dime, right? So short term, while it may have been a disaster or something, but long term it's going to actually benefit, right? So I do believe in the cliched thing that there's no bad PR, everything is good PR. If a PR professional is going through a crisis, if they are able to deal it honestly and candidly, like a human way, without wishy-washing it completely, they will come on top of it. And there have been businesses which have come on top of it just by admitting the mistake or by handling it gracefully. That's what consumers and customers love about big brands.
I think, yeah, because there are a lot of people that didn't even know about Coca-Cola being associated with Euro. Only after that incident happened that they come to know that Coca-Cola is also a sponsor of Euro.
Absolutely.
I agree with your point that there is no bad PR as such. It's like good content coming up, maybe used later.
Yeah, but short term it does create a lot of heartaches, right? Because you don't know how to handle it. But if you're able to handle it in short term, long term you're going to benefit out of it.
Yes. And there's one more coming on to the next question. So basically, a lot of startups right now are very much putting their efforts on building word of mouth marketing. That is some thing that all the growth teams are focusing on. And so, how do you think brands can leverage word of mouth marketing or build word of mouth marketing?
Sure. So there are two parts that I would like to answer this. First is when you're building the narrative, if you are giving X number of hours to build the narrative, please allocate at least 10x the time to seed that narrative or the content also. Lot of time spend disproportionate time in building the content and they spend 1/10 of the time in distribution. If you're looking at word of mouth, the second part is before the word of mouth thing spreads, you have to seed it at the right places and reach a critical number of people, right? Reaching the critical number of people is the key of the word of mouth marketing before it spreads like a viral thing.
All right. Yeah. So, Anshul, from your experience, what do you think is the best time for startups to start with their PR work or PR efforts?
I think PR is like search engine optimization or biz dev. It takes time to build up. If you are able to allocate some time of PR at the early stage, right, getting your narrative in place, getting your clear messaging out, it will help you at the early stage when you are just one person entrepreneur also in getting the right talent and even getting the right kind of investors attention. Obviously when you are becoming bigger, let's say after your series A or series B, when you're looking at growth, then PR becomes far much more potent because then PR is something that you will have to do to ensure that you're building the right narrative of your business from the third party perspective actually, right? So while at the early stage, I think it's most important for you to try out a lot of experiments in PR to get the right narrative out, get more clear your business model out. And the later stages more about talking about your growth, how many people have you hired, etc., to continue the momentum actually.
All right. Cool. So now a couple of questions for our basic people who are looking for career building in PR. So most of them actually wants to know what is the educational background that is needed for someone to build a career in PR. Is there any specific requirement, any specific things that we need to study, or we can just jump in?
The good part about communications is if you love talking to people and if you love talking to companies like brands, communications is the only field where an engineer can also join, like anybody. A scientist can also be a great communicator, anybody, right? It has to be innate born, right? But if you're one of those people who don't like to talk, who doesn't like to mingle with people, doesn't like socializing, then probably it's not. So I think it's not about technical skills. It's more about the social skills and cultural skills, right? And I particularly want to address engineers out there, right? If you do not speak right English, for example, because 6% English, only 6% right engineers speak English, right? It doesn't mean that PR is not for you. It means you can be still great at PR. It's just that you have to understand the communications better. And that's how I would advise you guys.
So for people who are interested in building a career in PR, what do you think are the right skill sets that they need to gain to become a professional and grow in this industry?
Couple of things which are very important for professionals to grow really, really well in communications. First is a very technical skill of understanding how communication works, right? Have a clear communication in expressing a certain thing or expressing how you can explain simple or complex topics in technology to journalists and reporters. It's very important, actually, right? The second one, which is more softer, which is what you have to learn and which is what you can Seekho of how will you come up again and again, because PR is a very stressful job. A single news can just go crazy for your entire shift of the day because news is 24/7. One single news or one single competition news can throw away your entire calendar haywire, right? So those are two things which I think is very important for people to grow very, very well in public relations and communications.
All right. Thanks, Anshul. Thanks for your yeah. This was a really great session, and we gained a lot of insights about how does this industry work, and not just about the industry, but how do you go about building your company. And really grateful to have you here with us. And I guess all our viewers would have had an amazing time listening to your story and to your advices. And hopefully we'll do this again with you. And we talk about something more in the PR industry or how to grow your business sometime in the near future.
Thank you. It was a pleasure coming here and talking to you guys. Have a good one.